I am unashamed. What about you?
When we're reading through this, the disciples, whether it's Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, in other words, if you look in Matthew 12, like 16, only after Jesus was glorified.
Talking about John 12 or Matthew?
John 12.
Oh.
Only, at first his disciples did not understand all this. He's talking about the prophets. Here's my point. You have a group of individuals, and the one that all the prophets said was coming was in fact here. Blessed is who comes in the name of the Lord, Hosanna, that's Psalms 118. But look, these guys, you would have had to go to the temple or some synagogue and drag up some old scrolls and know right where to look to find out that do not be afraid, O daughter of Zion, see your king. Blessed is the King of Israel, it says in John 12 and following there.
Yeah.
So here's the king. So you can't have a king without having a kingdom. And they're trying to figure this out. When's it coming?
No, I am going to make a point on it.
So,
I think the ironic part is then
let me finish my little statement.
He came up on a donkey.
Yeah. So my point is, we think that why did they have so much difficulty realizing that he was the king of the cosmos, was on the earth, and they're walking around with him? Well, we have the luxury of having it written down after it's already happened from the beginning to the end. They were participating in these events as they were unfolding, unaware of all of the scriptures that pointed to him. I mean, these guys were just, Peter, commercial fit. He didn't know all these texts to go to prove that,
It'd just be hard it's a hard sell.
Hard sell. Now, 2,000 years later, even having all the information from start to finish, the beginning and the end, the whole explanation, and all you got to do is, and you can look it up with a computer, seconds, you can find the verses.
Yeah.
We're sitting here with the luxury of having the entire story told. What we're reading in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John wasn't printed at the time, wasn't in print. And even when they got it finally in print, there weren't many copies. I mean, the rank and file person could miss this so fast. Yeah. So we need to remember that as we go through. And you say, well, why were these guys still not quite getting it? You're like, they didn't have the information. They're with him. They're seeing some strange things, but they're like, but even to this day, with all the information, look how hard it is to present Jesus. And they say, good night. That's the way out of here. You would think more people, but you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, he actually makes that point in chapter 20. After all it's recorded, everything that happened.
Yep.
And he's like, Jesus did many other miraculous signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not recorded in the book. I'd like to see or hear those. Then it says, but these are written, this is 30 and 31 of chapter 20. These are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ.
Yeah, there's enough here where you can't miss it.
Can't miss it.
That's right.
So, well, it's kind of weird if you're joining us. We've lost Al.
We did.
We've had a hurricane. The power is out, so we're actually back in my old stomping grounds. This
look familiar.
This is Duck Commander.
Let's see. Pandemic out of nowhere.
Yep.
Rioting and looting and shooting.
Yep.
And Karl Marx enthusiasts are getting out here with ideologies. We're going to take over the world. We'll start tearing down statues.
I'll take
And I
your
look
word
up,
for it.
I said, boy, that was bad. We had pandemic. Well, now this group's running around. That's bad. While I look up, here comes a hurricane. I mean, I'm cutting my way out of where I live with a chainsaw to even get out of there. I said, I need to have me an escape route somehow. I'm just trees like I'm not kidding. Oak trees this big around are just blocking the road. I went over to where we duck hunt there, Jase. You hadn't been there, but I would say hundreds and hundreds
Yeah.
of big trees fell in every direction. It took us 2 days with a bulldozer, me and Dan. Dan came out with his blood vessels burst in his feet, and the last word I heard him say after we got done that second day, and we had a bulldozer and a chainsaw, and I said, we're going to the woods. All these trees across the road. The last word I heard from Dan, the eunuch, was he got outside the vehicle and he's staggering like that. I said, Dan, you all right? And he said, everything's spinning, Phil. Everything's spinning.
That's
I'm
not
like,
good.
That's the last time you saw him?
Yeah, I said, everything is spinning. So a day later, I said, well, get you some rest there. Calm down, slow down. He said, I got to get some food in me, Phil. So his food is uncooked egg whites and algae mixed up, and he's a muscle man. But he said, Phil, you did what I've never done to myself. He said, I've never pushed myself past that threshold. He said, but you did it today with that chainsaw and that bulldozer and them beaver dams.
Well, I've noticed your inner circle. They're just really weird. Those guys, they're just.
Because
Did he go to the doctor?
there's some areas of the world which is where I've got my encampment down on the river, Jase. You were raised there.
Yeah.
There's some areas in the world where it seems it attracts weird people. and I always tell them, I've said, the good news is weirdness is in down here. You're fine. If you were not a little weird, I would be surprised. So, but Dan, he made it. He had blood vessels in his feet burst, and when your blood vessels burst, your feet, they just become purple underneath the skin. They just purple.
Well, what happened? What was the prognosis or the diagnosis?
It was about after the sawing. I'm sawing the trees, which I'm 74 years old, for crying out loud. I'm cutting these trees, big limbs, and I'm cutting it into blocks that a man can pick up if he's a man. So I'm cutting them just big enough to where he can pick them up and throw them in the ditch and get them out of the way. So I'm just cutting. We're going. Well, that's where we started. He took out the beaver dam on the dog. It was just logs and mud. It was a rough deal. It's about 35, 40 minutes.
And it's 100 degrees.
Yeah, 100 degrees, hot.
It is
hot. He got them out of the way. Well, then we're on the beaver dams. Well, he's got a beaver dam out there, and that's where he started going south. And he went to waving on me. And he said, Phil, it feels like needles all over my body. I said, what? He said, needles are pricking me.
Yeah, that's something.
Dehydration, probably.
I told him to have it checked when the blood vessels burst in the feet. I said, I never heard, Dan, you're 34 years old, blood vessels breaking in your feet.
I know we have a doctor probably watching, so maybe we'll get a
Not
email.
enough algae. Maybe he had the wrong.
We'll get a diagnosis from our.
I thought maybe it was the uncooked egg whites and the algae. I said, you drink that, your feet will blow off your body. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, so here's the interesting thing though, that because you guys are in, and I've just moved to North Carolina, so I'm out of the Louisiana, but this is almost Arkansas. And you guys got what was a category 1 when it hit?
I would say the wind at times, I've seen a lot of winds in my 74 years, but this was like 50 to 60 gust. 50, and 50 to 60 mile an hour.
Feels more than that.
It might have been more than that.
Yeah,
it was a roar. And
I would say
I was seeing
80 to
trees go
100.
down from my window. I'm looking out. I could see trees hitting, but I've never seen so much debris.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we just pulled in town last night because I'm filling in for Al, which is
Where is Al? We don't know.
Al, I think he's at doing a speech.
Speech rhymes with beat.
But when you see a 250-year-old oak tree just bite it and just collapse in the woods, I mean, I love trees so much, but man, it hurt to see some of them. Some of our landmarks, old big oak trees.
Well, my old house that was the oldest house in North Louisiana. I have like 3 magnolia trees that are the biggest trees in North Louisiana.
They're the biggest magnolia trees I've ever seen. They're gone.
One of them.
Ooh.
I mean, my wife got teary-eyed. It kind of, I was a little bit upset. The root wad didn't come out. It just snapped right at the base.
Was it in the back?
No, in the front. Like if you were sitting in the front of the house,
Yeah.
the one on the left,
Okay.
the biggest one. And look, here's what's funny. Not funny, but when it fell, you know, I got this white fence out there that's 150 years old, and Missy like loves that fence. I mean, it doesn't look like, oh wow, but it's a 150-year-old fence. But the tree limb actually caught itself, and it's right above the fence. The fence was, I mean, here's this massive, however much, you know, how much you think a tree weighs? Thousands of pounds.
Tons.
And it's just right above it. So we lost probably half the trees. And you know that pear tree that you go get the pears? It snapped. And look, there were, I would say, 150 pears over the 11 acres. So I don't know if the wind turned the pears into projectiles, but every few feet there'd be another pear. Yeah. Or it could have been the critters came in.
Nah, I think that was the wind.
Probably the wind.
It was a strange.
But you lost power, right? Because you said
I just got power last night. I was out for 3 days: Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and the only thing where I really messed up, because you know Missy's in Texas and with her daughter, so here I am by myself, no power, it's 100 degrees. I had, between me and my neighbor, we had 6 huge trees down, and they like strategically fell where they didn't destroy our houses. Because I mean, look, that was a 15-minute period. I thought I could very possibly die here. Because my neighbor called me and he's like, sorry, one of my trees hit your house. And I text back, yeah, I know. Because when it hit the house, I jumped 3 feet. I mean, a kawoom. And it punctured my roof, but I mean, nothing major. And then, well, I went outside to kind of look at it. Well, I looked over it right in front of his house, and one of his trees has fallen, and it's leaning up on another tree. So I called him back and said, hey, go to the other side of your house because there's a tree fixing to fall on your house.
let's take a quick break. Have you ever noticed that your hair isn't looking quite as full as it used to, Jase?
Well, I just cut mine because when I was doing some yard work, I kept getting vines wrapped. And so then I started just cutting it out, which is a good problem to have because, you know, I have it. Yeah. But if you want to keep it, which is the overall goal.
Well, so you cut your hair off, but most guys are trying to keep their hair. And if you are trying to keep your hair, go to keeps.com. You can get our deal here. You go to keeps.com/door, and you'll get 50% off your first order of Keeps hair loss treatment. That's keeps.com/door, keeps.com/.
I said, do not come outside. It wasn't 10 seconds, and he pops his head out, and I see him looking up at it. I said, get up, move back. And about that time, it broke from the limb, but instead of falling toward his house, it fell toward mine, and it fell right in between them. I mean, this thing, I took a picture of him in the root wad. The root wad, when it came out, was about 12 feet high.
Ooh, yeah.
I mean, incredible tree.
I saw one after the other like that. Which goes to show you, boys, who was it, James, that said life is a vapor? I mean, you know, life is short and full of trouble.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what
so it's never going to be.
No.
This is not heaven on earth.
I'll tell you what I did. When I saw that, then I had some anxiety, and I thought, well, this is out of my control because they were falling on both sides of my house.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I thought, you know what? Because I had gotten up early because the trees started hitting the ground. That's what woke me up was a tree fell, you know, behind my house. I went out and I was like, hurricane warning here. And so I just said, you know what? I'm gonna go in here and go to sleep. I remember that story when Jesus, you know, in the storm, and I was like, because there's nothing I can do about this. I'm tired of going from one end to the house. So I went to bed, and what woke me up was a chainsaw. And the guys, the Guatemalan family that works for Willie, they were cutting my tree off my roof, which I thought was really nice.
But you didn't lose power, right? So you were good to go.
Trees fell all around me. We are surrounded by gigantic trees within 10 feet of my house. So, just right there. We live in the woods, and towering trees. Oh, that's 250-year-old pines, virgin pine. They're like this. Yeah. But they all were left standing when the smoke cleared. But several people in Louisiana lost their life due to falling trees. More people died by falling trees than anything.
Well, except
a few
now,
minutes, I thought, man,
now, guess what's taken over? Carbon monoxide poisoning because of generators.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought,
you got to, because you're powered by generator right now, right?
But it's about 60, 70 yards from the house.
Okay.
In the woods. It's not even near my house. Yeah. You got to get it over there.
I thought how ironic is that? I mean, you make it through the hurricane.
Yeah.
Then you hook up a generator because you want to be comfortable.
You don't want to hook a generator on your porch, carport. No, get it out away from your house.
Do you know it was the first time in the history of Louisiana, that a hurricane warning was issued in North Louisiana? Because usually by the time they get here, they this is using their metrics.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, it's got to be this wind speed to be a hurricane 1 or 2. I heard them before my power went off saying whether it was going to be a 4 or 5, because they were like, it's almost a 5. Well, it was blowing 150 miles an hour. And to be a 5, it was 157.
I can't even imagine.
Phil, I was like, do you actually think that those 7 miles per hour is going to matter? Whether it's a 4 or a 5? It's just ridiculous.
Well, they said the Mississippi River and I saw the Washoe River both flowed backwards, I guess, from the storm surge. It was a pretty big storm surge.
Which wasn't as bad, though. They were calling for a 20-foot storm surge. Yeah. They said it will be unsurvivable, but I don't think it ever got to 20. But I think the aftermath is what, because you don't realize it. I guess you never think it's going to happen to you. I mean, I just thought, we've been through hurricanes before, but by the time they get to us, okay, wind damage, we actually hunted it, teal hunted in one.
Oh, yeah.
And couldn't hit the ducks because the wind was blowing so hard. I mean,
really?
We all ran out of shells. I mean, we
hit shoot
some,
one time and they'd just catch that wind,
gone.
50-mile-an-hour wind, gone. They were hard to get.
But where I messed up, because I've never lost power to any storm, up where I'm at. And I just didn't think that it was going to take days. And I'm like, because you couldn't find a generator anyway. I looked into that. It's too late.
You got to get that early.
That was the two hottest items were generators and ice.
I lost my power for 10 seconds. And that generator kicked on. And I said, boys, we're gonna ride this one out. We're gonna have power too.
Yeah. Does it power everything you got?
Everything I have, and it's good for about a month or more. It's a big propane tank that thing runs off of. They monitored it from 100 miles south of us. They got a computer screen.
Yeah.
And they know when they got them all scattered out, but they monitor them all via the computer.
Yeah.
So it kicked on, and it's been running ever since. So and more people started gathering up down there, because it was cool when you walked in my house, air conditioning,
Oh, yeah.
So your place was the place to be.
It's like coming to town without a weapon, which it would never occur to me. In other words, when I go get the mail in my yard, I have a weapon on me.
You packing now?
I'm packing now. You have to. That's just the way with the pandemic. I ain't paranoid. I'm just prepared.
Oh, you're borderline paranoid.
Prepared.
But now look, having the generator, because look, you told an illustration in a sermon one time that I never forgot, but I never appreciated it until this event happened. And what happened was I was scared to open that refrigerator or freezer, and I just tried to ignore it because I thought, man, day 1, day 2, day 3, and I thought, but then the power
keep it as cool as long as you can.
That's what Miss said. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Oh yeah, that's a
when
woman. That's a woman talking
the
there.
The refrigerator, there was a block of cheese there that is now green. And all any meat that was in a bag, the bag had exploded, and the smell hit me like a wall.
Yeah.
So then I opened the freezer, and blood just came out on the floor, and I thought, course, I started gagging, you know. Like, well, here we go. And I
And
didn't
the
have
drain pan. I mean, all that stuff drains into a pan. It's just a cesspool of just.
Jase,
been there.
you forgot that sermon I had preached, whatever.
No, here's the sermon illustration you had. You said, I don't know if you remember that. This is like 25 years ago, and I never forgot it. You said a lot of people's lives, they're like, because we had the same thing happen down there to a freezer. And remember when we had the little cook shack and you had a freezer there. Mm-hmm. Well, somebody had unplugged the freezer.
Oh, man.
But you didn't know it because when you walk by, you're just looking at a brand new freezer. Looks awesome on the outside. But the first time you popped the lid, it was like same thing experience I had, just gagging on all fours on the ground. But you made an illustration. You said that's the way a lot of people are, like in the way they carry themselves. Everything's great on the outside, but inside, you know, it's just a rotten mess. Yeah. And I thought, yep, I get it now. Because I smelt nothing. Because I thought if it was bad stinking, I would smell it. Nope. When I popped the door, it just...
I had a freezer adjacent to me that was not running off of the power plant. So I went out there. I gave it 2 days. Miss Kitty, we had to keep longer. I said, a couple of days. Got to do something about that. So Stone and I got a long extension cord, plugged it into my house where there is power from the generator, ran the wire over there to the house adjacent to me where I had the other freezer, plugged it in, it come on. Well, then I opened it up, but it was still intact. I saw ducks. I saw peas, as in, pea picking. I saw peas. I saw pecans, and I saw corn. We freeze it in the shuck because it's already got its coating on it. Mm-hmm. So all that was in that freezer, but I got it back online, and it was still cold. It was still frozen.
Well, let's take a short break. You guys bought a house in Austin, right?
Yeah, we did.
What's your best purchase?
The best purchase was 3 Helix beds. I had gotten one before that Cole, he just took control of it. It was his turn into a present for him graduating college.
Yeah.
And I was going to let him borrow it, and I never saw it again. And so I got 3. I'm going to tell you, I have tested the product, and I will give that 2 thumbs way up.
See, I was looking forward to sleeping on one because you said Cole had one at your house, but I guess he took it with him, so I didn't get the chance to sleep on it last night. Well,
have bed, will travel.
Well, too bad for that. But hey, just remember this: Helix Sleep sells personalized mattresses made right here in America, and they ship them straight to your door with a free no contact delivery for anyone who's scared about the coronavirus. Free returns and a 100-night sleep trial. That's huge. To choose a mattress, Helix made a quiz that just takes 2 minutes to complete and matches your body type and sleep preferences to the perfect mattress for you. Did you take the quiz?
I took the quiz. It was less than 2 minutes, and you won't need 100 nights or whatever. Just one.
So you were sold after the first
one night. One night. Did it.
If you like the mattress, if you like a mattress that's really soft or firm, you sleep on your side or your back or your stomach, or if you sleep really hot, with Helix there's a specific mattress for each and everybody's unique taste. So just go to helixsleep.com/unashamed, take their 2-minute sleep quiz, and they'll match you with a custom mattress that gives you the best sleep of your life. Helix is offering up to $200 off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners here at Unashamed at helixsleep.com/unashamed. That's helixsleep.com/unashamed. for up to $200 off.
So I lost nothing.
It was still frozen, or was it just cold?
I lost a little bit of, when the crowd kind of got gathered up there, and it kept getting more of them. But Stone, his little girls, and Nan and them, they stayed with us for a while just to get away from the heat.
Well, in an ironic twist, Willie.
We ate good. We've had great meals. So we're getting, real... our cooking skills have come forth, so we didn't miss a beat. But I mean, it's way worse on the coast down there for those people
Oh,
because
yeah,
they're
that's
houses.
Yeah, but once it unthaws, you got to throw it out there.
Well,
Yep.
what's ironic is Willie didn't lose power. He's literally, 300 yards from me.
How did he do that?
Does he have a generator?
No, he's on a different line than
Yeah.
I am, and he never lost power. So that place became the hub. And whenever because I was working, cleaning up all the trees, chainsawing it all day. I mean, that's what I've been doing. Well, need a shower and a little air conditioner. So I'll go over there. Well, there's 45 people over there because everybody has gravitated toward the electricity
Kin folks and their friends.
and the grub. When I came over there, Willie had cooked, I don't know where he said, what was that called? Sea bass, Chilean sea bass.
Oh, that's the best.
He said he had ordered some and they mistakenly, like the next month, sent him the whole order again, doubled. And he said, I didn't even ask for it. But it was perfect.
But he didn't send it back.
No, I mean, Willie can cook. He had that, and he had fried squash. That was it for 45 people. Now he had enough squash. This table,
Sea bass and squash.
yep. And I had to admit, it's pretty dang good.
Chilean sea bass.
Chilean sea bass.
So the point of your of Phil's sermon is the perception is not always reality.
That is correct.
It may look nice on the top, but you open the door.
I think Jesus mentioned that about the Pharisees. He said, you're like, what was that he said? Whitewashed tombs. You look on the outside when he gave his withering.
There were a lot of things Jesus said, don't worry about. And these were included in all that, you know, pandemics, floods, drought, fires, planet Earth is a pretty violent place. So you got to take it in stride and just say,
It's brutal.
life is short and full of trouble here.
Well, the middle day, I just had enough. And so I decided just to, forget my problems and go metal detecting with Murray. Plus, you couldn't get gas around here. I mean, you're way out there. You got your own gas, but gas and ice. And because I thought, well, I don't have any grub. I'll go to, one of these fast food
I had
joints.
fuel tanks, but no power. So the pumps on the field, when you get your hose,
Yeah.
there was no way to run them. So I called Red, the local redneck. I said, Red, meet me over there at the fuel tanks.
Was he the siphoner?
Huh? No. We went over there, and I said, Red, see that welding machine in there? We hadn't cranked it up in about 7 or 8 months. I said, I want that welding machine right beside these 2 tanks. And I said, we're going to turn the welding machine on, get it running. I said, it is a generator. We'll plug the cords from the fuel tanks into this welding machine. And I said, until you get your fuel, then you turn the welding machine off. You come back. So it was a way to crank up the pumps on the fuel tanks. So now we go fire the welder up. It fires up. I've got power to the tanks. We get the diesel or gas, both.
Yeah.
Whichever one you want. So you just got to be prepared, boys. This is all I can tell you.
You're the guy you want to be around if the apocalypse happens.
If the apocalypse happened,
You're the
I'd
guy.
be a good man to run with.
Yeah.
We'll survive it.
I'm going to make my way to your house when it
Hey,
Well, that's it. So what are we in John? Are we in John 12?
John 12. Oh, I didn't finish my story. When I went metal detecting, I ran up on 2 boys that I just saw it. Because, you're seeing all these strange sights on the way we were headed toward the Mississippi River. And I'm like, I look in this boat. They were parked at a gas station. I just wheeled over there, rolled down my window. I said, I got to go check this out. These 2 guys had captured and killed the biggest alligator I had ever seen in my life. It literally looked like a dinosaur. I have pictures. Whew. And I was like, I got to hear this tale, which they told me the tale all night. Because it's legal. They had a permit. You can go the lake where they were at. They give you 2 permits. It's like a slot. This thing was almost 12 foot long, which you're thinking, well, I know they get longer than that. But the girth, he literally just took up the whole boat. And I said, well, how
that thing weighed a ton, probably.
Look, they snagged that thing with a rod and reel, then got a treble hook on him. Of course, then they, it's kind of like the, what's the show that was,
Swamp people.
Yeah, swamp people. You know, they wrestled this thing all night. They shoot him with a 410. And then I'm like, well, how'd you get him in the boat? Because it didn't look, there was 4 of them, but one of them was like a kid. And he said, oh, that's what we've been doing all night. He said, we started this at 9 o'clock. Of course, it's 6:30 in the morning. 9.5 hours. He's like, yeah, none of my muscles are actually functioning at this point to get the thing.
How many guys were there?
There was 4 of them, but
4
one of them
guys.
was a young kid. And I just, it was a monster. And I thought to myself, with all this going on with the hurricane, typical Louisiana, these guys over here catching the world's biggest alligator, you know.
It's like the guy who came to me, and it was 11 o'clock at night, and I preached the gospel to him. I asked him, did you want me to baptize him? Showed him some verses, you know. He said, yeah. He said, wait a minute. He said, are there any alligators down there? I said, there are alligators there. I said, but the Lord will be with you. He's like, let's wait till tomorrow, till it's daytime. He just had in his mind, I figured the Lord would protect him, you know, when I baptized him, but you never know. About a 10 or 12 foot gator come up. That's all of it.
That's all she wrote.
This thing here,
But that's a bull.
I mean, I would say 400 to 500 pounds, 12 foot long.
Oh, he was more than 400 or 500.
Well, I don't
12
know.
footer.
I'm just guessing.
Oh,
Maybe he was at 700, 800.
700 or 800.
It was so big. The boat was like, and the tires were like,
oh yeah.
I just couldn't believe. I said, I can't believe y'all got the boat to the bank.
Yeah.
He said, me either. I mean, it was just an incredible sight. But you know, I think when you get too close to the trees, literally, you know, when they were falling, the job looked so big. I mean, because my neighbor who used to, you know, work at Duck Commander, they're from California. Well, they had never experienced a hurricane. And I could tell when I went over there, I mean, they were shook up.
Yeah.
And because the first thing he said to me, he's like, you know, we're thinking about moving. I said, no, we made it. It's over. You know, I was like, that's the first time a Category 2 hurricane has ever hit North Louisiana. I was like, you survived. I mean, I'm looking at there's trees just everywhere. And he's like, I mean, but the only thing I can figure is there had to be angels guiding these trees down. I said, it does seem pretty almost supernatural that none of these hit your house. They were literally laying in every place except his house.
There's a lot of trees down here. I mean, when I rolled in, I didn't see it last night because it was dark. But this morning when I got up, I mean, it is.
Oh, it was right there in our neighborhood.
There's tens of thousands
power
in the
lines.
state, but there were hundreds where I'm from down there.
But you know, what's comforting to me, I mean, I think I kind of walked them, you know, off the ledge. I was like, look, it's over. We'll be fine. But that's why I left too, because the job looks so big.
Yeah.
That you get depressed if you just.
We don't have earthquakes here either.
Since you brought up comfort, the most comforting thing I could ever read a human being is this. Jesus said to Mary, Martha, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live even though he dies. And whoever lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? She said, I believe you're the Christ, the Son of God, who was to come into the world. So you take statements like that coming out of an individual, that's quite the statement.
That is.
He talks about supernatural things like it was nothing, supernatural things. Thomas Jefferson and a lot more like him, great minds, when they read about Jesus, they had no argument with what he said and how he said you're to live your life. They embraced that 100%. But the first time he went beyond natural and supernatural, once he crossed that line,
they couldn't go there.
The great minds say no.
Yeah.
They just couldn't bring themselves to believe in the spirit world, the supernatural world. They just couldn't do it.
You know, I'll say this about our community. As much as people are been just in panic and hysteria over the coronavirus, I'm not making light of it, but, you know, we were talking about earlier before we started filming, you know, the CDC came out with these new numbers, and it's like 94% of the deaths were people who were either well over 70 with a secondary and third condition. So only 6%,
Yeah.
which we're getting way down there with just the coronavirus itself. And,
Let's-
which is why so much panic.
Let's take a quick break and finish that thought. So, what is COVID-19, Phil? What does it have to do with losing your home?
Absolutely nothing. It's just an excuse one more time. Get a pandemic and they try to steal your house. Yeah, that
That's what they're doing. Cyber crimes.
I never thought we'd get to the point where people would go around stealing other people's homes. But after watching television at the riot in the Louisiana, I said, yeah, they'll burn them or they'll steal them, whichever one comes first.
And they do it all virtually.
We're living in some sinful times.
No question. The FBI reported that since the virus struck, that cyber crimes are up 75%. It gets worse. The legal title is really all our homes are. They're all online now. It's all we have. And the crime is called home title theft, and it's everywhere. This is kind of shocking to me. Cyber criminals find their way into your home by stealing your title. They forge your signature, and they do a quick claim deed, and then they refile as the new owner of your home, and then boom, you're off the title. So you've lost your home, and you've never done anything.
And law enforcement can't help you there?
Exactly. Well, I don't know about law enforcement, but I'll tell you who can help you. That's Home Title Lock. So the first thing you need to do is you need to go to hometitlelock.com, and then you register your address to see if you're already a victim. And then you use the code PHIL, P-H-I-L, for 30 days. You get a 30-day free protection program. The code is PHIL at hometitlelock.com. That's hometitlelock.com.
Which is why so much panic is going on. But then here we have hurricane come, which, I mean, there were a few deaths, and, you know, we hate it. But you look around and people just rolled up their sleeves, and I just didn't sense the panic and fear.
Nope.
And I'm telling you, you know, it's one thing to see about a hurricane on TV, and we're talking about, we're in North Louisiana. You were right. In South Louisiana, it was just sheer devastation.
Oh.
I saw some report where they said there was 150, you know, they didn't call them Cajuns, but Cajuns down there that wasn't leaving, you know. And then, so I thought, well, those 150 are not going to make it. And none of them, they all made it.
Yeah.
I thought, boy, you're talking about some backbone.
Oh, they're tough.
Yeah. So, and even now, I mean, we're 2 or 3 days past this. I've never heard so many chainsaws and generators and people just trailers of debris. I mean, these people have worked.
There's a lot of cleanup that's going down. I mean, every yard, every piece of property has a big pile of brush in it, just massive limbs and stumps. I mean, I'm like, good night.
But look, I sent Missy a video. I was driving down the road, and all these power companies from all over the South are here now, you know. But people like rolling down their windows, hollering at them, you know. I mean, I was doing the same thing, you know. There we go, because you don't have any power, and you see this army of trucks coming.
It's hot here, though.
Oh,
I mean,
is it
my
hot?
gosh.
I mean, it's been miserable, but I keep thinking, I put it in perspective. The further you go south, the more miserable it is.
True.
I mean, I am in a house, even though it was 90 degrees for a couple of days. You wake up in a sweat.
Maybe we just didn't have the news media, the instantaneous news media type when I was a boy growing up. But I've racked my brain. I just don't remember the things like pandemics, wildfires, hurricanes, floods.
Well, I think you just have more media.
The 140 mile an hour wind or some 120 to 140 went across the Midwest 3 or 4 weeks ago, a month ago. Went through Iowa, blew all the corn down. I'm like, 140 mile an hour wind in the Midwest? Just a little storm blew up, and there you got 100 and enough to blow the corn down. So I hope I'm wrong, but it almost seems like we're being punished.
No, I think it's more just you got 24-hour news cycles. I mean, there was a day. Can you imagine when a hurricane would come and you wouldn't know it was coming?
Yeah.
Especially one like this, because it was quick moving.
I'm telling you, man.
I mean, you're just, sitting on the beach, and next thing you know, gone.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they just, there's a little light wind.
Think
Oh,
about
that
the
feels
guys
good.
in ships and stuff and boats back in the day, the 1800s. They're just going across there. They don't know that there's a Category 5 hurricane coming. It just took them and just.
Well, by the time they saw it, it's too late.
Oh, tore them to pieces. I mean, there's many a ship wrecked out there from storms.
Well, the information age we're in now, the digital revolution. I mean, we have access to so much information. It's a little bit it's an overkill.
Yeah.
So that's why you see it now where you may not have seen it,
But John, chapter 11 and 12, Jase, we're in chapter 12. This is the text. Matthew, Mark, and Luke record Jesus saying, I'm going to die, be buried, and raised from the dead. Here he words it, now's the time for the judgment of this world. Now the prince of this world, the devil, will be driven out.
Oh, I
But
like that.
when I am lifted up from the earth, when they string me up like an animal, will draw all men to myself. He said this to show the kind of death he was going to die. He was consistent with the prophets, what they said. He said, I'm going to die, be buried, and raised from the dead. Repeatedly, over and over. It's recorded 4 times, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, so no one could miss it. So how in the world people would go past that event, Dash, I just can't quite figure it out. Well, that's the centerpiece of the entire story. Jesus died, was buried, and raised from the dead.
Well, it's interesting, John 12, you've got 2 events preceding kind of this prophecy of Jesus talking about how he's going to die. The first one is the perfume. She pours the perfume.
Which is a strange story that Jesus really highlighted as a important, awesome event.
Yeah.
I mean, in John 12, it doesn't go into detail, but in Matthew, what's the Matthew account of it? You probably already said. Yeah, in 26, in that account, it says, wherever the gospel will be preached, we will also tell this story in her memory.
That's interesting. Well, the denarii, it says that, Judas got upset about her so-called wasting the perfume, and verse 5, John 12, why was this perfume not sold for 300 denarii and given to poor people?
But that was Judas, right?
Yeah. But that was like, a denarii is like a day's wage.
Yeah.
So you're talking about she just dumped a year's worth of earnings onto the feet of Jesus, and I mean, she's worshiping him as the king that he is. I think it's interesting. I see this like constant dichotomy through the book of John of there's like one way that people are viewing it, and then there's like the reality of the situation. Like people are worshiping the things of God. I mentioned this, I think, when we were in John 3 or 4, over the God of the things. And you see here, Judas is kind of doing that same thing. Like she's putting this perfume on him, and he's like, no, we need to help the poor, which is, I'd say that's another form of virtue signaling on his part, but it's like, it's bigger than that.
Well, the one that was going to betray him, he said, why wasn't this sold, the money given to the poor? It was worth a year's wages. He did not say this because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. As keeper of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put into it.
Yeah.
So he was siphoning away the money bag.
Does that sound familiar?
I was just saying, I think that caught on way back and is still going on.
Well, and you said he was going to betray him. He was already betraying him. I mean, with that in his heart. But I think he does represent the religious who are hypocritical in our culture today. Because you just think about that one thought. He was right. This does seem like a waste. Technically, his argument had a lot of weight, and that's why I said he represents
That's why he made
it. And I've seen the same things in religious groups. When some of their sermons on giving, and they're like working.
Let's take a quick break.
Because they're like, here they're giving these powerful sermons on you need to work and you need to give. Well, why? Well, because he wants to get paid. Which the point is, if you just took one point in Ephesians, which I the point is not work. As much as I've gotten on my soapbox and heard people about, hey, you need to work, and the 1 Timothy 5:7, if you don't work and provide for your family, you're worse than an unbeliever. Mm-hmm. But when you read Ephesians 4, listen to this in verse 28. I think this makes a key point. It says, he who has been stealing, which we just mentioned by Judas, he would help himself to the purse, must steal no longer and must work, that was part of his argument. Well, we need to help the poor. We need to get out here and work so we can help the poor. But work wasn't the point either. Doing something useful with his own hands that he may have something to share with those in need. So my point is, Judas was so far from sharing because he was stealing. And it's not about working, and it's not about this argument about giving to the poor. That was just a vehicle to try to, keep his pockets lined. But the true disciples of Jesus realized that, we don't steal. That's just a byproduct of wanting to share with others, which would be the exact opposite. So when we work and God blesses us, we share. I just think it when your heart's not focused on Jesus, you come up with these lame, justifiable arguments.
Yeah, we quit passing the hat. The little group I meet with, we don't pass the plate or the hat and drop your money in here. Nope.
Yeah.
There's a thing at the back, and I said, if you want to drop some in there, go ahead. I said, but trust me when I tell you, not 1 cent of it is going to me. I said, it's not going to me. I said, we need lights. You got to pay for them.
Well, I
understand.
We use. I think you're right. The religious world uses a lot of language and rhetoric about helping the poor to raise money for the organizations that supposedly help the poor.
Some of them do a great work.
Yeah, some of them do.
Franklin Graham and them, they do a great work with that Samaritan purse.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I'm not going to put them all in one lump.
No, but I'm just, in this context, that's what Judas did, and I do think you have to be on your guard for that.
You do.
Because we know the end of the story. Well, yeah, we knew Judas was eventually going to betray Jesus. But in that moment, he wasn't like he was not with them. Jesus washed his feet despite knowing his heart. But everybody else.
Jesus knew he was up to no good, too.
Yeah, but think about this, though. How many times do I use the term that I think is popular now, social justice, as opposed to just biblical justice, but we create these campaigns to alleviate poverty or to help people for the sake of helping people. And I think what's interesting about this verse is this passage is that you can help people all you want, even if Judas would have done that, and if you miss the one who can save you from eternal destruction, then it's all for null anyways. Yeah. I think this whole book of John is pointing back to the person of Jesus, and I think that here is just another example of how what we do as individuals. Judas did it a little more deceptively, but he's taking something of God that should be good, helping the poor. He's elevating it above the king.
And to me, all these things they accuse the religious world of doing, to me, Jesus does the exact opposite. Here was this woman who did something you would think is, ridiculous. Because, Judas is taking her on, but Jesus took up for her. And, I've heard people say, non-believers or whatever. It's like, oh, Jesus, in the Christianity, they're anti-women or, we've already read 3 or 4 stories where Jesus took a woman with, in some cases, a lot of baggage and went to the wall for her. And here, to equate with what she did with his death, burial, and resurrection that was coming up, saying, not only are we going to share what's going to happen at my burial, and she gets it, we're going to tell this act of worship, this awesome experience. To me, I'm like, how could you be more pro-woman than that?
Especially in a culture What Josephus said that you couldn't even take the testimony of a woman. A dog was higher than a woman. So in this culture,
exactly,
was very degrading to women, and yet Jesus, that's not how he rolled.
That's why
America started out with, and they had women under their boot too, because just think about it, they couldn't even vote.
Yeah, I
mean, just think about that.
But the point being, she got the message of, yeah, we're going to have poor. And in Matthew 26's account, Jesus says you're always going to have the poor. But when she poured this perfume on my body, she did it to prepare me for burial. And because he's making a point that what's going to happen is bigger than any injustice, any poor, helping the poor, any travesty, because now you're going to have a way to get forgiveness of sins, and you're going to have a way to get resurrected.
It's a final solution that all these other all these other things are just temporary solutions.
Yeah,
that's why the wind was blowing and all this the other day. But I said, man, I'm glad I'm a child of the resurrection, because we could bite it on this one.
Well, I think that's a great point that Jase makes, though, that out of the scriptures here, that what Jesus is saying, they're worshiping Jesus as king. And then in the very next passage, it's the triumphal entry where where they're worshiping. He's king now, but they're not seeing that. Well, just a less than a week, he's about to be killed.
Well, think about it. Most kings that they had not seen, they didn't come riding up on a donkey.
No.
Which I'm saying?
I mean, we can talk about that next time, but I think he did that on purpose, just because it's nothing what you think.
Yeah, that's right.
Everything is kind of the opposite of what you think. But when you look at a donkey, he's got some pretty good qualities. He's just, he has become, I think, just because Jesus rode one. I think the people who are anti-Jesus, they just made that kind of a slur because it's another way, to poke fun of him. But those who know the animal world, he's smart, he's intelligent, he's strong as an ox. He's not easily manipulated. There's a lot of qualities about a donkey that's actually a thumbs up.
Plus, it's better than walking.
Yep.
And they're odorless. Do you know that?
I didn't know that.
And they kill snakes
and coyotes.
Oh, they protect the cows.
Yeah, they're good animals.
Yeah.
I think we're out of time. So, hey, make sure you guys subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or whatever feed that you listen to it on, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is a Phil Robertson YouTube channel. But thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for listening to the Unashamed podcast. Help us out by rating us on iTunes. And don't miss an episode by subscribing on YouTube, and be sure to click that little bell to get notified about new episodes. And for even more content that you won't get anywhere else, subscribe to Blaze TV at blazetv.com/unashamed.